The burden of personal interpretation. We have all been there, wounded by a careless remark, shaken by a cold glance, consumed by an offhand comment that cuts deeper than it should. We carry these wounds long after the moment has passed, replaying the scene in our minds, allowing it to fester until it becomes part of our identity. The weight of personal offense is a prison we build around ourselves, brick by brick, moment by moment. But imagine for a moment if you could simply stop. Stop carrying the burdens others impose upon you. Stop taking things personally. To stop taking things personally is not just a psychological shift. It is an existential transformation, a rejection of the emotional chains we bind ourselves with. In this text, we will explore this transformation through the lens of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that demands discipline of thought, clarity of action, and the fortitude to rise above life's trivialities. Let us begin this journey into the depths of self-control, where we learn not to overcome others, but to overcome the only thing within our power, ourselves. The nature of offense, perception versus reality. The first lesson we must internalize is that offense is not born from the act itself, but from our interpretation of it. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is the core of Stoic philosophy, the realization that events are neutral. It is we who assign meaning to them. When we take things personally, we are choosing to interpret an event as a direct affront to our person, our ego, our worth. But if we strip away that interpretation, what remains? Nothing more than an event, a fact, devoid of emotional weight. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, urges us to remember that everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Here lies the first step in our journey, the recognition that how we interpret the actions of others is within our control. If we choose not to see something as offensive, it ceases to be offensive. We, as firm believers in Stoicism, understand that the mind is the battlefield where all emotions wage war. The path to peace is not through controlling others, but through controlling how we perceive their actions. The ego's role in personal offense. Why do we take things personally? The answer lies deep within the ego, the fragile sense of self that craves validation, approval, and recognition. When someone criticizes us, ignores us, or offends us, it is not the act itself that causes pain, but the ego's cry for acknowledgement. It is as if our worth is being questioned, and the ego rushes to defend itself. Yet, this is where Stoicism offers its most profound wisdom. The ego is a false construct. As Seneca writes, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The self that is hurt by offense is not our true self, but a mask we wear, built from the opinions of others, the circumstances of life, and the fleeting desires of the moment. The true self, the Stoic self, is untouched by these things because it knows its worth is not dependent on external validation. The Stoic does not cling to the fragile ego. We do not seek recognition or approval from the world. Instead, we turn inward, realizing that our value comes from within, from our character, our virtues, our ability to live in accordance with reason. When we let go of the ego, we free ourselves from the need to take things personally, because nothing external can threaten our sense of self. The power of indifference, cultivating ataraxia. One of the most powerful concepts in Stoic philosophy is the cultivation of ataraxia, a state of inner calm, imperturbability, and emotional freedom. This state is not achieved by numbing ourselves to the world, but by developing a profound indifference to that which is beyond our control. As Epictetus teaches in the Enchiridion, some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. The opinions of others, their actions, their judgments, these are all things beyond our control. So why should we allow them to disturb our peace? The Stoic knows that true strength comes not from reacting to every slight, but from maintaining an inner fortress of calm that cannot be breached by external events. We, as Stoics, do not waste our energy on things outside our sphere of influence. We focus on what is within our power, our own thoughts, actions, and responses. To cultivate indifference is to realize that we are not the center of the universe. The world does not revolve around us, nor does it owe us anything. Others' actions are not about us. They are about them, their own struggles, their own journey. When we stop taking things personally, we stop believing that the world is attacking us, and we start to see events for what they truly are, neutral occurrences that only have power over us if we grant them that power. The practice of emotional resilience. Let us now turn to the practical application of Stoicism in overcoming the tendency to take things personally. Emotional resilience, the ability to withstand life's slings and arrows without being thrown off course, is a skill that can be developed through consistent practice. First, we must embrace the Stoic practice of premeditation, known as premeditatio malorum. This practice involves anticipating life's difficulties, not with pessimism, but with the clear-eyed understanding that challenges are inevitable. When we expect that people will offend us, that misunderstandings will occur, we are not caught off guard when they do. Seneca writes, "He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand." By preparing our minds for the inevitability of offense, we rob it of its power. We no longer react with shock or anger because we have already accepted that such things will happen. The Stoic mindset is one of perpetual readiness, a mental fortress prepared for the worst but unshaken by it. Next, we must engage in the Stoic practice of self-reflection. At the end of each day, we should ask ourselves, where did I falter? Where did I allow my emotions to rule me? What could I have done differently? Marcus Aurelius reminds us that self-examination is the key to growth. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Through this process of reflection, we learn to identify our triggers, the moments when we are most vulnerable to taking things personally. And with that knowledge, we can begin to change our reactions, replacing emotional reactivity with calm deliberation. Stoic silence. The power of restraint. One of the greatest tools at our disposal in the quest to stop taking things personally is the practice of Stoic silence. The impulse to respond, to defend ourselves, to lash out. These are natural human reactions. But the Stoic understands that silence is often the most powerful response. By choosing not to engage, we deny the offense any power over us. As Marcus Aurelius writes, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When someone insults us, when they try to provoke us, the greatest act of strength is not to meet them on their level, but to rise above it. Silence, in this case, is not passive. It is an active rejection of the ego's demand for validation. It is a refusal to let others dictate our emotional state. We are not obliged to respond to every provocation. In fact, we are stronger when we choose not to. The Stoic practices apathy, not in the sense of disinterest, but in the ancient sense of being unmoved by external events. We do not allow others to drag us into their emotional turmoil. We remain centered, grounded in our own principles, and unshaken by the storm around us. Fortitude in the face of judgment. Taking things personally often stems from our fear of judgment. We worry about what others think of us, how they perceive us, whether we are living up to their expectations. But the Stoic knows that judgment is nothing more than a reflection of the other person's own mind. As Epictetus wisely observed, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Others' judgments are not within our control, and thus they should not concern us. What matters is how we judge ourselves, based on the virtues we strive to embody: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If we live in accordance with these virtues, the opinions of others are irrelevant. Seneca counsels us, what need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. Life is fleeting, and to waste it worrying about the judgments of others is to squander the little time we have. The Stoic chooses to live not for the approval of others, but for the peace that comes from knowing they have acted rightly. The unshakable self. As we bring this exploration to a close, let us remember that the goal of Stoicism is not to become emotionless, but to become unshakable. We do not take things personally because we recognize that the self we are defending, the ego, is an illusion. Our true self, the Stoic self, is beyond the reach of offense because it is grounded in virtue, not in external validation. By practicing self-control, by cultivating indifference to things beyond our control, by embracing silence and fortitude, we free ourselves from the chains of personal offense. The world may continue to provoke, but we no longer respond with anger or hurt. We remain calm, steadfast, and unshaken, for we have learned that nothing can harm us unless we allow it to. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And so, we leave with this message. Strength is not found in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. The journey to stop taking things personally is not an easy one, but it is a path that leads to true freedom. The freedom to live in accordance with your own principles, untouched by the fleeting opinions and actions of the world around you. Together, as we walk this path, we fortify ourselves with the wisdom of the Stoics, and in doing so, we become unshakable.